Hello and welcome to another episode of the djproject Criterion Collection. And here we're going to talk about Spine 453, Chungking Express, directed by Wong Kar-Wai, 1994. As I said before, part of why I like Criterion is that it gives me a chance to explore a lot of different directors, a lot of different cinemas from various countries and various styles and so forth. So this gets me into other parts of Asia that are not Japan. In this case, it's Hong Kong. This was actually a film that Quentin Tarantino loved so much that he got Miramax to get the U.S. distribution rights to show it, and there you are. The film actually tells two love stories that happen in sequence, and even though none of the characters intersect the two, so it's like two little episodes, but they both involve Hong Kong cops in love, both falling out of love and getting into love. The first story, the cop number is 223. He is getting over a breakup. The breakup happened on April 1st, and it was just a month before his birthday on May 1st. And he has this foolhardy plan to eat cans of pineapples that all have the expiration date of May 1st. I think with the intention is to prove how much he loves, and maybe she'll turn around and say to him again. And of course, it all backfires in more ways than one. And May 1st actually does happen, and he ends up he's in a bar, and he ends up spending the night in a very platonic sense. There's nothing there's nothing physical that happens at all. It's all strictly platonic, with a woman unbeknownst to him, but you find out, but the audience finds out that she's involved with drug smuggling. But of course he doesn't know this, and there's drinking, there's cries of loneliness, there's some bit of compassion, but it's not quite there. It makes it sound bleak, but it's not as bleak as it sounds. It's just very, very detached, and that's sort of the point of the film is that it, even in one of the densely populated cities in the world, everybody's in their own little worlds. Everybody's completely isolated from each other, even though you have this, very, very tightly, again, very densely populated. I guess I haven't been to Hong Kong, but the only other basis of comparison I could give this to is New York, and the times that I've been in New York, I felt like I was in a sardine can. And I could imagine going to Hong Kong would be much worse. I don't know what I would feel like. Probably, I don't know. I can't even fathom that. So, anyways, so that's the first story. Then the second story involves another cop named 663, who is also going through a breakup, this time with a flight attendant. And the snack bar that he frequents, there's a woman who works there named Faye, who starts taking a fancy to him, and through some bit of circumstance, he manages to get a hold of his apartment keys. It's because the thing that happens is his old girlfriend leaves a letter to the snack bar he frequents, with a letter and a set of his keys. And Faye gets a hold of these keys and uses this as a chance to rearrange his apartment to improve his living situation. And so, but over the course of this little kind of cat and mouse stratagem. Nothing too elaborate compared to, say, The Double Life of Veronique, and certainly compared to Amélie, but somewhat of a stratagem nonetheless, and a little bit of like you said, no, you said, and or I didn't mean this, and just some back and forth play. In the end, he does find out what she's been doing, and it turns out she's inspired to become a flight attendant herself, and she actually draws a boarding pass using a napkin that's post-dated a year later. The idea being that if she is interested in following her, use that as a boarding pass and they can kind of continue the relationship. It sort of backfires, and then, I don't know, it's really kind of hard to, again, I don't like giving plot summaries because I don't want to just recount the whole film. But really the charm of the film is the cinematography. I mean, for starters, filming it in Hong Kong is a very, it's never a dull place. I mean, there's always something going on. There's always, there's lights and there's activity. Everything just has this frantic energy. And in some ways it's almost like Breathless on speed. The way it's shot and the way it plays out. It feels like Breathless, except you give it speed, and maybe something a little bit more trippy because, again, Hong Kong has a lot of neon lights. In fact, you could say this is kind of a gritty and less rainy Blade Runner. And the only reason why I mention is because part of the design influence on Blade Runner was also inspired in part by Hong Kong. Well, even then it was again very dense and lots of bustling activity and so forth. Although not in the same parts. Usually the Blade Runner look is more in Kowloon. Most of the story takes place in another section of Hong Kong, Sim Sut Sui. I'm completely ignorant on Hong Kong geography, so I'm gonna save myself some embarrassment and not dig myself into any further holes. So yeah, the charm is just the cinematography, and that there's it's kinetic when it needs to be. In fact, there's several moments in the first part where the camera is constantly running, and because of the neon lights and the fast pace and everything looks like it's streaks. So there's this constant movement, but it also is not afraid to sit still. Again, as I said, the camera is an actor, so sometimes you want to move, sometimes you want to stay still, and it has that balance. And then most other times it's sort of handheld and follows people around. The other thing worth it to note is that Faye is played by Faye Wan, and if she's not the first to do this, she's certainly a prototype for the manic pixie dream girl. Like everything about her is she fits that to a T. Very quirky, very eccentric. She knows what she likes, and she especially loves the Mamas and Papas California Dreamin'. In fact, the first time I saw it, by the end of it, I almost got sick of the song because it just kept playing all the time. When I saw it a second time, I didn't mind it as much. Maybe it's because now I'm prepared for it. It's like I know I'm going to hear this song over and over again. But she does. She plays that song every chance she gets. While she's working, while she's in the apartment doing all the arrangements, she just constantly plays that song. And so be forewarned. Either if you love this, well, I would hope that if you love the song, you don't mind it. But if you didn't care for it that much, if you didn't care for it that much, you probably will hate it by the end of it. But the other thing that makes her a prototype for Manic Pixie Dream Girl is that Faye Wan is also a pop singer, and her style is described as C-pop or Cantonese pop, and her own version of dream pop. In fact, in this film, she does her own cover of the Cranberries' Dreams. So if you really hate that song, wait till you hear it in Cantonese. Like, this song is everywhere. And apparently, I haven't picked this up. I need to see it again in order to see it. But apparently there is a cover of a Cocteau Twins song that appears in the film. And the Cocteau Twins song is, I think, is Who You Are. You know Who You Are Every Age. The first song off of Four Calendar Cafe. I forget at the moment. It's not an album that I listen to all that much, so that's why it's... but she does a cover of that, again, in Cantonese. And in fact, Faye Wan did actually collaborate with Cocteau Twins on a few occasions, and some of their later songs were actually covers of Faye Wan songs, so it's this nice little mutual thing. Another little thing to mention about Faye Wan, and it's only because I know this film and I do like it. Unfortunately, it isn't in Criterion. It isn't a Criterion release, but I think it is worthy of pointing out, and that is Faye Wan provided some inspiration for another film that would come out much later in 2001 called All About Lily Shushu. It is Japanese, and in so many words, I describe it as a cyberpunk 400 blows, because it's dealing with teenagers and particularly teenagers in Japanese society, which has its own host of problems and issues and such, and it's that story played out, and it also involves the internet and there's this fictional pop singer that's has very ethereal vocals, like what characterizes dream pop. In addition to the ethereal vocals, dream pop also tends to have a very lush overall sound, like very textured guitars and so forth. Again, Cocteau Twins are sort of the fathers of that particular style. So you can imagine that, and so anyways, end digression there. But now, unfortunately, on the Criterion side, yes, this is out of print. This is more Merrimack's fault as opposed to Studio Canal. And by the way, this is the last time you'll ever hear me mention that phrase, out of print. Everything from here on in is going to be readily available. I will also say that if you know me personally, and if you are interested in a copy, I know I can get this on DVD. I may be able to get it in Blu-ray. I'm not sure, but I know a way. It's legitimate. I don't have to go through CE channels, but I also want to try to keep it as much on the download as possible, because it's one of those things where if I start blathering about it, it may be this big thing. It's like, oh, it's still available, and then everybody rushes, and then it quickly goes. But if you are interested in this title or you know someone who is interested in this title, let me know privately. Don't make a big deal out of it on the comics. Just send me a personal message, and then I will see what I can do. I guess this is another life imitating art thing, because again, there's a small smuggling subplot, and you get to see the other things that go on in Hong Kong, the black markets at play, and various other dangerous markets. So here we go. So who knew that Chungking Express, the Criterion edition of Chungking Express, could elicit its own black market? But I also have this feeling that it may be back in print, because I can't see why. Like, I don't know how you would top it, because there's director participation. I don't know if it's, let me check really quick. Okay, it's just called a special edition. It's not called director approved. But the soundtrack was newly mixed in 5.1 surround sound, and Wong Kar-Wai was involved in that. And while it's not printed, the cinematographer Christopher Doyle gave his final approval on the transfer. And he was able to do that after, like before it was released, but after everything was all printed. So he wasn't explicitly mentioned, but it was more mentioned after the fact. So, but yeah, it's. In some ways, I am attracted to the film because I do appreciate the form of it and the image and how it's sometimes there's a stillness, but also there's a kinetic energy to it, and I like the setting. I like the way that the narrative plays out. It does feel. Obviously, it feels disjointed because it is two separate stories, and sometimes it does feel a little underdeveloped in some respects. But at the same time, it also, I think it's less a bug and more of a feature of the film. There have been comparisons to this film with Jean-Luc Godard, which is why I think of this as Breathless on speed, or maybe not speed, but certainly some kind of upper, but. But yeah, I will say check it out. I don't know when it's going to be available in any form. Hopefully soon by somebody. Hopefully it will come back to Criterion, but who knows? But again, if you are interested, let me know, and I can try to hook you up with something. So there you go. Actually, this is so far the only Wong Kar-Wai film of his that I've seen. I know he's done plenty of others. I know about In the Mood for Love. I know about 2046. I know about Happy Together. Maybe one or two others. I haven't seen all of those, and maybe it's one of those things where if I see more of his films, I get more of his. So it's really hard to judge really his style, but. So, I mean, those films are definitely available. In the Mood for Love is another Criterion title that he directed, so you can easily get that. And it was newly remastered as well. So, and I've heard that it actually looks better. So maybe I'll pick that up. But at any rate, so maybe at some point I'd like to get more into him and see what else. And so, but yeah, Chungking Express. And until next time, take care.